What's up, guys? Ted from Immersion here, and I'm back with another D&D weekly update. We actually have a surprising amount of news that popped out this past week. Some awesome stuff regarding Xanathars, including the table of contents, a new series of minis, some new previews from D&D Beyond, as well as Dragon Talk, and again, big bumps on the D&D Extra Life, so be on the lookout for that. Oh, and a new dungeon tile reincarnated. So, you know, things you may be familiar with from previous editions or runs of Dungeons & Dragons are now coming back in a new form. So if any of that sounds interesting, be sure to stay tuned. Alright, so here we are on the D&D Beyond Facebook page. We're just going to scroll down and look at which previews we've received so far this week. They've added some new stuff. They actually were just on Twitch earlier today doing I guess an update for the October development. And man, does this take a long time to load. So let's see what we got so far this week. We got the Scout Rogue. I'm sorry, we got the... Whoa! This is taking its time to catch up. Some of these, they don't seem to post them as often as they do on other social media. But they did the War Wizard earlier this week, or War Magic, which is the War Magic Arcane Tradition. This is... sorry, it's jumping all over the place. This is basically a combination of the War Wizard and the Lore Wizard from Unearthed Arcana combined, because War Wizard was a little bit underpowered and Lore Wizard was pretty overpowered, so they kind of combined the two together to make this War Magic Arcane Tradition. Scout sounds... I'm trying to scroll up, but this is not working. And you can get some lovely images of Todd Kenrick's face there as we scroll. Scout Rogue seems pretty much untouched as far as I can say. As far as I can tell from what they said, they still have the 17th level ability to use sneak attack twice in a turn. They have their mobility and things of that nature. I will say, I do want to point out that while I do love Mike Merles, he's a super great guy, super nice. I've actually met him in person. Great guy. I prefer the Jeremy Crawford D&D Beyond reveal videos because Mike Merles goes off on tangents all about sort of the concept or something that is similarly related to what the topic is, whereas Jeremy Crawford will actually dive into the mechanics of the class and give you insight into what changed from the playtest to what ended up in the final. And like, you could watch the entire Mike Merles video for any of these and you might get like a nugget of info towards the end. Like the Hexblade, he talks all about the Elric series and very little about the class until like the very end he throws out like a one-liner like, no, they can rip out the souls of their enemies and turn them into a specter to fight for them. And that's better than the Hound of Itlomin. And that's it. So, and then we had the Way of the Drunken Master Monk was announced. Sounds like that pretty much stayed the same from the little bit that I have heard. Keep going slowly. Path of the Ancestral Guardian Barbarian as well was the more recent one. Unless there was... Yeah, Oath of Conquest Paladin. We're going to show you all of them in just a bit because we have the table of contents from the Extra Life. They did actually start doing a podcast version of Dice Camera Action. This is the Tuesday night stream with Chris Perkins, Anna Prosser Robinson, Nate Wants to Battle, Pro Jared, and Commander Holly. They started off in Barovia, then they went to Storm King's Thunder, and now they're in Chult for the third season. So they actually started with the intro of the third season is now available in a podcast-only format. So you can check that out. Again, links for everything you're seeing will be in the description. Patrick Rothfuss was, if it'll click over, was on Dragon Talk talking about... man, why is everything taking so long to load here? Blizzard, that's why. So he was there to talk about some fun projects he's got going on, playing with his kids, violence and storytelling, and it looks like there was some lore you should know. I'm really sorry that this is taking so long, but it gives me a chance to mug to you guys and talk a little bit. Lore you should know is all about Netheril. So if you're ever curious about the Netherese, this would be the lore you should know to check out. Thomas Foss was on he's from the Neverwinter team, to talk, stop by the studio before PAX West to talk about Tomb of Annihilation storyline. And the lore you should know was about Lantern. I don't even know what that is, to be honest with you. So, I could probably learn something. The island chain north of Chult. Didn't even know there was one. So there you go. Last week, there was an Unearthed Arcana about Fiendish options. It was basically expanded Tiefling options. And this survey is available here if you'd like to take it. Again, as always, I highly, highly recommend that you take these surveys, because your feedback in these surveys goes to further decide what makes it into a future published book, what they leave alone, your comments as to why they should change it. If you, again, watching those videos, if you watch any of those D&D Beyond videos, I'd say specifically the ones that Jeremy Crawford does, he will tell you this was very well received in the playtest. This wasn't, we didn't think it could really work, but we thought it could combine these two classes to make this. Like, they sort of combined the Knight and the Cavalier to make the new version of the Cavalier. Things like that. I just wanted to do a quick primer on the D&D Extra Life page. You can see these are all options. Unfortunately, we've broke 45k and we actually don't have these three. We do have the table of contents, although part of it was leaked due to cat gifts, and the rest has been leaked, I think, through incessant begging. Some of which was my own. As far as the Turtle Champion stuff, nothing there. But what's crazy, guys, is we've raised $45,000 out of their $55,000 total goal, and the stream hasn't even happened yet. The stream is set for November 3rd and 4th. That hasn't happened, and they've already almost met their whole goal. So that's pretty cool. And again, those of us who play Organized Playing the Adventure League, the more we earn here, the more we can get, although I don't know if the 100k for the free resurrection is useful, considering this is, Tomb of Annihilation, so if you die, you're dead, so I don't know if the free resurrection is super useful to you, but I guess it is in a tier 3 game. And I just wanted to pop over here to their actual Extra Life page to show you that we're at 45,000 out of this, $75,000 goal. I talked a little bit about Dungeon Tiles Remastered. Well, here you go. So this is breathe life into your D&D game with these colorful dungeon tiles, infinitely expandable and easy to set up. These tiles allow you to create adventure. So basically, if these are anything like previous sets of dungeon tiles that I'm aware of, they are you'll get like essentially a box or a folder with a bunch of, how you would normally have like a battle mat that folds out or rolls out, or you might even have like a folding paper one. This will be several of those, but more in tile format that you can kind of modularly place. So, dungeon, tiles to make fantastic dungeon maps, 16 durable, double-sided, fully illustrated tile sheets featuring dungeon rooms, corridors, caverns, tunnels, other terrain elements. Wilderness, tile sheets including grasslands, ruins, sandy beaches, and other terrain. And then city, buildings, sewers, streets, and other terrain. It says $24.99, available in January. I'm not sure if you need to buy... Oh, available in the following set. So it looks like you do need to buy Dungeon, Wilderness, and City separately. They don't come as a package deal. But still, it's cool. I mean, for all we know, if this does well, we might see, potentially D&D official terrain pieces. We actually see some of those in the case incentives for, say... I think it was for Storm King's Thunder and for Tomb of Annihilation. Tomb of Annihilation, we got the Trap set. And I think it was either Storm King's Thunder or Monster Menagerie. We got Esmeralda's Cart and Camp. I said the table of contents was leaked on Twitter. Or not leaked, it was posted. But not in a formal... as you can see, it was a picture taken rather than like the actual image uploaded. That reminds me, I also should tell you guys this. Maybe I'll do a separate video on it. But we got a full subclass preview of the Forge Domain class. Which I'll let this load here in just a sec, which was one of the Unearthed Arcana Cleric subclasses, which did make it finally into the book. And we can scroll down here and get a good look at it if it will load to the next page. The other important thing is to see how much it changed. If we scroll up a little bit, how much it changed, and also check out that art, right? How much it changed from the playtest, which actually isn't very much. This is available for your free download, or just to view it on the Extra Life page, as well as the D&D article page on the Wizards of the Coast website. But let's jump back. So, what do we have? We have all 3 barbarians that were in Unearthed Arcana playtest: Ancestral Guardian, Storm Herald, and Zealot. We know that the Ancestral Guardian went through a second round of playtest in one of the revised subclass Unearthed Arcana, so who knows what the final version is. And then does that mean that the Storm Herald and Zealot were good as they were? Because they're not changing them now. We've already heard that the College of Glamour and College of Whispers bards were coming. We now know that the College of Swords is also being added, which is good because bards didn't get much expansion in previous books. In like the Sword Coast Adventures Guide, there was no bards, but there were barbarians. I'm curious to see if they kept with what they had for College of Swords, because you got to be careful when you're doing this, because you don't want to step on the toes of the College of Valor, which is your melee bard. Cleric, we see the sidebar serving a Pantheon, Philosophy, or Force. I'm guessing that was the little blanked out sidebar we didn't see on the Cleric page. But we got the Forge domain and the Grave domain, which means they gave up the Protection domain, I believe it was the third one they decided to ignore. For Druids, we've got Circle of Dreams and Circle of Shepherd. That means no Circle of Twilight. But perhaps that just didn't fit into what they were looking for. And they did seem to keep the Learning Beast Shapes little extra piece, which was a cool way to either story-wise allow your druid to learn other beasts that it might not know or be able to find, or as a way to have, if you're a druid and you'd like to try to get new forms that your DM doesn't think you might know, this might help you. We've actually heard all 3 of the fighters already: Arcane Archer, Cavalier, Samurai. Monk, we've heard the Drunken Master was coming. Now we know that the Kensai is also coming, and the Sun Soul Monk. This is probably, I would guess, no different than what we saw in Sword Coast Adventure Guide, other than the errata version, which would say something along the lines of magically emanates, the aura magically emanates from you, meaning that it could be shut down in an anti-magic field, or potentially dispelled via Dispel Magic. And the reason they do that is to help with the Unearthed Arcana, which I'm going to actually write down, or not Unearthed Arcana, Adventure League, to do a video on that. They have a thing in the Adventure League called Player's Handbook +1. And what this means is when you go to make a character in the Adventure League, you can only use the Player's Handbook and one additional source, whether that be Elemental Evil Player's Companion, or Player's Handbook, Sword Coast Adventures Guide, what else? Volo's Guide, and now Xanathar's. You can only choose a Player's Handbook and one of those. Yes, there are ways to get around that through specific campaign documentation or certifications you might get for doing something else. That's entirely possible, but for the most part, it's only +1, so they're trying to basically eliminate you needing to go back to the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. You can grab these guys here. So, Way of the Sun Soul Monk. Paladin, we have Oath of Conquest, which we heard a little bit about today. This is sort of your dark, almost evil paladin. And the Way of Redemption Paladin, at least in the playtest, was a no-armored paladin and sort of the kind of happy-go-lucky traveler person who's out there just helping people. The man, the salt of the earth farmer type who doesn't even use real weapons, just uses a quarterstaff. Ranger, we heard about Horizon Walker. We have the Gloomstalker, which was one of the Underdarks. This is one of the further back, almost original Ranger archetypes. This is your kind of shadowy Underdark Rangers, and then the Monster Slayer Ranger. We have the Rogue. We have the Inquisitive. The Scout we've already heard about, and then they just reprinted the Mastermind and the Swashbuckler, so you don't have to go back to the Sword Coast Adventures Guide. For the Sorcerer, we have the Divine Soul, which was previously the Favored Soul, which we have heard about. And we have Shadow Magic, which they have talked about as well. Again, another one of the more original Unearthed Arcana, and then reprint of Storm Sorcery. Warlock, we have the Celestial, which was previously Undying Light Warlock, and then the Hexblade. We have Eldritch Invocations, which is going to be good. That's going to be expanded options, hopefully for all Warlocks, not just these new guys here. And Wizard, we have the arcane tradition of war magic. I could have sworn I saw blade singing in it, but maybe I'm wrong. I guess so. And then they have the life event tables, which we did see in one of the previous reveals. So origins, personal decision, life events, supplemental tables. Then we see racial feats, which makes me think that the weapon-based feats and the kit-based feats that we saw, like Fell-Handed and Blade Master, aren't going to make it. But the ones we saw in the racial feat expansion will, and we won't probably get the skill-based ones, which is kind of a bummer. So racial feats. Then we have a whole section on DM's tools. This is going to be great stuff to expand your knowledge as a dungeon master and potentially ways you can interact with the game as both a DM, and then your players can also interact. But I also see drastic changes coming to the Adventurer League. One of the most important things, and you know, probably the main reason to use downtime activities is as a function of the Adventurer League, because so you get your awarded downtime days at the end of an adventure. And now there's an entire section on them revisited. But let's take a look through what I see and what kind of jumps out at me. So you got simultaneous effects. I'm guessing this might be like multiple spells cast at the same time, like a fireball and a cone of cold, or an oil or a grease spell and a fireball, or something like that. Falling, this is probably due to the fact that people seem to have... It comes up a lot, actually. I feel like more often than you'd think. Someone's flying, and they get hit, they get knocked unconscious, they fall asleep through a sleep spell, hold person, hold monster, and they just begin to fall. Do they immediately, however high they are, just impact the ground and take all of that damage? Or is it like they fall 60 feet a turn, and then like people have a chance to catch them? That's why I think it also says flying creatures and falling. I think we're going to see something similar to previous editions, where their wings will lock, and they can just sort of spiral down, taking less damage. But the rate of falling may also improve the damage. I've heard people don't like that it, like if you fall 100 feet, it's 10d6 damage, and depending on where you are level-wise, that's easily survivable. Sleep, they added stuff for waking people up, but they have a specific thing in here for sleeping in armor, which was something that has always come up in the past in a lot of my games. Not so much that people are like, oh, it's just like there's no penalty. In previous editions, you could not sleep in heavy armor or medium armor, or you'd risk getting a level of exhaustion. You could sleep in light armor or take a feat that would allow you to negate sleeping in armor, but I'm guessing they put this in here to kind of call back to that. And then situations for going without a long rest. Adamantine weapons. This is huge. These are things that, like, little things that I didn't think I even cared about. You can get adamantine weapons, or mithril weapons for that matter, but as of right now, all they do is just grant you, they're considered to be a magic weapon, and they surpass damage resistance of certain creatures. Perhaps we'll see they do something else. Section on tying knots, tool proficiencies, and using tools and skills together. Tool descriptions could be interesting. Spellcasting. Good stuff here. Perceiving a caster at work. This is probably for your counter spells. Identifying a spell, and again, counter spell and dispel magic. Invalid spell targets, which I'm assuming is when you have something that says, like, it targets a creature. You can't technically target a door because a door isn't a creature. And then area of effects on a grid. I'm guessing this is whether or not a fireball is a true circle versus whether it fills up square-based, things, how that's going to work. Building encounters, random encounters, and it looks like a whole list of them. Traps revised, which wasn't on Unearthed Arcana we received before. And this is going to seem like it's going to deal with the simple and complex traps there. We see downtime revisited, and then all of the previous downtime activities. Buying, carousing, training, selling magic item. Then we see awarding magic items has its own page with a sidebar behind the design magic item distribution. And then a whole page of common magic items, or at least common magic items has a section on one of the pages with the sidebar are magic items necessary in a campaign. And then we have sidebar creating additional common items. So I guess this is going to show us how to create common magic items. Then we have magic item tables on page 140. And then sidebar, this is an interesting thing. Again, something I didn't think I really cared about. Recharging without a dawn. So there are certain magic items that recharge every day at dawn, or every day at midnight. And if you live in a realm or in a realm, let's say, where there is no dawn, do your items recharge? Then a whole section on spells. It looks like, from what I'm seeing, though, only... oh, no. I was going to say only 3 spells, but it's spells, spell lists, and spell descriptions, about 22 pages. We have interesting shared campaigns. I'm curious if this is sharing players or characters between campaigns. I'm running a game and you're running a game and we share stuff back and forth, or we both co-DM. Who knows? And then character names, a big long section for non-human names, and we've got Dragonborn, Dwarf, Elf, Gnome, Halfling, Half-Orc, Tiefling, and then a big old chunk of human names from various nationalities and countries and locations, which is very cool because this could cover a lot of things for you. So it looks like this is it as far as I can tell. So it looks like the book is about 200 pages long, which is pretty solid. I don't actually have any of the other source books in front of me. Do I? Actually, I have Volo's right here. Let's see how long Volo's was, to give you guys a reference. Volo's was 223 pages long, to give you some frame of reference. And this seems to be, at least the last listed thing here is 192 pages. So it looks like we're pretty close to about the size of Volo's if you're going on thickness of book. So very cool. I'm very excited about this. But we're not done, because Monster Menagerie 3 was announced. This is set to come out in January. The Monster Menagerie series is up there with one of my favorite series. Storm King's Thunder is also towards the top, just because the minis were larger than they were actually huge size minis. But it seems like we're going to have that in these boxes as well. So, we're going to have new heroes and player characters, including Aasimar and Tritons. Villains and monsters include the Niagi and Slad, as well as powerful new giants like the Dreamwalker and the Dreadnought, which those are giants, which I'm hoping means they're giant-sized minis. 44 figures. Each brick contains 8 boxes. Each box has 4 figures, 1 large or huge figure, and 3 small or medium. So there it is. It is listed as huge size, so very cool. And guys, the case incentive, I'm so pumped. You ready for this? A freaking Kraken. Look at that. So we get not only the base Kraken, but 6 tentacles, like a treasure chest, a rowboat, looks like some sand dunes, and then like a little skeleton wheel, like pirate ship wheel. Set to come out in January. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second. We have seen in the past 2, or maybe 3, actually the past 3, we had the Esmeralda's Caravan, which came out with a lot of things that were themed around Curse of Strahd. We had Chief Guh from Storm King's Thunder, who was one of the giant chieftains for Storm King's Thunder. And then for the Tomb of Annihilation, we got the Tomb of Annihilation Traps pack, which was the screaming face, the screaming demon face, a portal, pit traps, gold, spike traps, fire traps. All very cool. This here, for this set, is a Kraken. Does that mean that the next campaign we're going to get has a Kraken in it? Because that means that it's got to go till the end, right? To the very end of leveling, right? Because the Kraken's like CR 23, so this has to be a full-blown campaign. I could be way off base on this, but I'm just looking at what's happened recently. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think that I'm far off on this, and that this is just a coincidence? Or is this actually going to be a thing we're going to get? Because I will be very excited for that. So, anyway, guys, that's pretty much it for this news. This is one of the longer ones I've done in a while here, but there was a lot to go over. I have a bunch of other videos in the process that I'm thinking about making, some more D&D 101 stuff to hit up some topics that we touched on that we may have to then revisit with Xanathars, like resting and grappling and things like that. Stuff that comes up that everybody always seems to have questions on. I'll do my best to outline it for you guys. What else do we have? This coming Monday, the 23rd at 9 p.m. is the premiere of a brand new stream. We are doing Princess of the Apocalypse, the second ever released Wizards of the Coast module, and I'm going to be joined by some very talented folks from other D&D communities. Bucky from Taking Initiative, Brittany from Venture Maidens, Chelsea from North by Northwest and Encounter Roleplay, and Davis from Dank Dungeons. So the 4 of them are going to be playing in this game together. You can come watch the premiere episode with me as the DM and see what happens with these guys as they get into crazy scenarios. So, and then as always, we will be continuing our Tomb of Annihilation stream on Tuesday. We are into the final chapter of the book now. Very exciting. So it's down to the wire. And then Wednesday is my character building show, It Builds Character. I believe this week is Nobby Knobs from Discworld, I believe is the character that I'm building, who I know literally nothing about. So I've got some research to do this weekend. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Oh, should probably put up the end screen, right? So you guys can see the videos up above my head there. Oops. Well, anyway. For real, though. Oh, I also did a review on the Tomb of Annihilation DM screen from Gale Force 9. They sent it to me. I did a review. That video will be up above, and you can click here to subscribe to the channel. And I'll be at PAX Unplugged, but we'll talk more about that when it gets a little bit closer. Anyway, guys, for real this time. See you next time.